All right, welcome back to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5. We're going to finish off this first hour in really, really good style with a great guest here coming up. Before we get to that, I just want to remind you about Nico's Greek and American Cafe. All right, 3 locations in Houston. You got the Woodlands, beautiful big open space in the Woodlands. And you got Beltway and I-10. And then you got the original, my favorite, down on Montrose, where I used to go, and his mom and dad were in there, and I'd be coming back from coaching kids, and they'd keep the kitchen open and make me something to eat. Nico's Greek and American Cafe, the best in lamb shank, souvlaki, gyro, great chicken soups as well. Now, yesterday was National Girls and Women in Sports Day, and I was sitting around thinking about just how women's soccer has just grown beyond belief, from the quality of play to athleticism. Well, our next guest is the head coach of Texas Tech. He has a long history in the game. He's been a scout for U.S. Soccer. He's been an under-20 coach. He coached the Atlanta Beat in the WUSA. Was an excellent player himself. We go to Lubbock, and we go to Tom Stone. Tom, how are you?
Great, Glenn. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, I thought you'd be the perfect guest today on since yesterday was National Girls and Women in Sports Day, because you've really seen the women's game just accelerate and grow through your lens. Just let's get some of your initial thoughts on just where women's soccer has grown from your involvement in it.
Well, when you've been in as long as we have, Glenn, you get to see the changes. I think what always strikes me in these conversations is that when you're in it, even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you think that was the greatest time ever. We couldn't believe how much youth soccer had come along in the late 80s, early 90s, all the way through the beginning of the 2000s. And it's just obviously exploded on another level. Not all the levels that people are fond of, but as far as its size and expertise and the number of players that we're producing. And then, when we played in college and then when we played professionally, that seemed like a golden era of things that were growing and incredible opportunities. But when you fast forward to today, I mean, the last 10 years in the women's game globally, it has just exploded. And there's, we could do an entire show on just why that is, but the European clubs investing and developing teams and putting their money and their brand and their uniform, their kit, behind it. And then, of course, here in the U.S., we had the first major league women's pro soccer league. You mentioned it, the WSA. And for people that are too young to remember when that had its heyday, just imagine right now your favorite 2 French players, your favorite 2 or 3 Brazilians, your favorite Chinese players, Japanese players, German players, Swedish players, American players, all the best American players. Every one of those legends, Marta, Cece, everybody, not Marta, Cece and that whole group of Brazilians, they were all in that league. And imagine that came on the heels of the 99 World Cup, which many, claim that launched not only women's sport, but women's soccer, into the stratosphere in terms of awareness. 93,000 in the Rose Bowl, 40 million on TV. Brandy Chastain with the winning penalty takes her shirt off. Nike puts a bigger logo on when they reprint it, and the rest is history. They're on Good Morning America and every other talk show, and then everybody wanted to be a ponytailed hooligan. That really was a launching pad, and then the pro league came after it, and all of the legends of the game at that time were in that league, which is incredible. So. Yeah, the last 10 years, it's gone to even new levels. You look at the NWSL and what it's been able to do. The leagues around the world are functioning at a high level. So it's a great time to be in the women's game right now. But I've kind of felt that way the whole journey. Every change, every 5 years, I thought, God, I'm so lucky to be coaching in something that's full of great women, great athletes, tremendous thinkers of the game, and then watching the game grow on the shoulders of all the efforts of those 99ers and everyone else that's come in between. It's been a great ride.
Listen, you have and I'm this is in all truth. You have contributed to the women's game in such a big way, and so many women have, but also a lot of men like yourselves committed fully to the women's game because you loved it so much. You love the quality of the players. You love coaching. You've taken it to new heights and new depths, and not depths, but to new heights and have been such a big part of it. I want to go back to something you said, though. The big brands getting involved now. Now we got competition for players overseas. We got some U.S. players that want to go overseas because it might round their game out in a different way. You got players overseas that want to come to America. This is all healthy. Salaries are going to grow, and we're going to see these brands help to push the envelope, right?
Yeah, there's no question. And they know how to do it, right? I mean, they have hundreds of years of professional soccer expertise, and they know how to build a club. And whereas, I think the owners of women's pro soccer here in America took it in the wallet for quite a while before they started seeing the crowds that we're getting in some of these cities. And, I predict Denver is going to be the next great franchise because of who they hired and their homegrown approach, and the city of Denver, which is just in love with soccer in general, and certainly on the women's side. So, but the bigger brands around the world, they got behind it, and then it became way more popular socially. You talk to some of the older English pro players, and they'll tell you that, when they had kids, their daughters were part of the elite because these guys were making, big money. They didn't play soccer. It wasn't for – over here, it's always been a middle to upper class, unfortunately. It's been a middle to upper class sport for many, many years. And over there, those players didn't play. But now it's cool, and now you're making good money, and now you can be good enough to get an education from a U.S. university or somewhere else if you choose to go that route first. And it's just so widely acceptable all over Europe specifically that everyone's playing. And once that happened, it certainly lit a fuse around the world. And, of course, it's been like that over here for quite some time.
Very, very exciting. We're talking to Tom Stone. By the way, a little note on Tom Stone. Scored the lone goal in the NCAA National Championship 1986 against Akron. So just a reminder, we got a Duke University Blue Devil on here who scored a game winner in a national championship game. That's kind of rarefied air. All right, let's talk a little Texas Tech and your program and maybe how the game has changed a bit for you as a coach with the portal. I mean, you're seeing it all through the college game in your lens.
Yeah, speaking of change, right, the whole college athletic landscape is tilted. Football and basketball have always been the drivers, and they are now more than ever because you need to be successful in those areas to keep athletics cooking in many ways. And so we're all excited for those changes, for those sports, those athletes. And it's, there's more than a trickle down into women's soccer because it's such a popular, collegiate sport as well, that we're seeing those changes also. The portal has a lot of pros and a lot of cons. The cons really are that we may be losing a generation of players that want to grind it out with development on the forefront and opportunity not immediately realized and graduating the player that they fully could have become because it's so easy to go. And we're seeing players, I think, jumping around in some cases because they don't play as much as they thought they should have as a freshman on a top 5 team in the country, fill in the blank team. And so they go somewhere else. And I think that's a con, but it's also an unintended consequence. Like no one said, oh, that'll be a good thing. Because the other side of it is maybe it wasn't a fit. Maybe the coaching staff and the player aren't a fit stylistically. Maybe the education they wanted they weren't getting. Maybe in the area of the country they were at, they didn't love it as much as they thought they would, right? So now, instead of it being difficult to move, and instead of it being really a challenge to get somewhere else, it was really tough before. If you think about the transfer rules, you could be outlawed by your coach or the athletic department for in-conference transfers, or they could just say, yeah, you can't go anywhere in the Big 12, and you can't go to Duke. I mean, they were allowed to do that. We were allowed to do that back in the day. So the pro of it is the movement allows, hopefully, players to get to a landing spot where they fit. And with early recruiting and players, female players changing from sophomore to junior to senior year and programs growing or crashing, these kids commit fairly early, right? It's a year and a half before they're coming to school that they make their commitment. They sign in November. They don't have to return. They don't have to show up till September of the next year. So I think that there are a lot of pros to it also. So everyone who says it's terrible isn't taking into consideration that this freedom is not a terrible thing. But there are instances where I think it's potentially creating a culture of move on.
And what I worry about, Tom, is that, if the littlest thing doesn't go right, I'm jumping into the portal, and then I don't have the coach player relationship, that is reality sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a get out of jail card free. Instead of confronting the issue and hanging in there and working with the coach, and that also takes away a little bit of your ability to nurture and teach and mentor. I would think from the outside.
Well, you're right. It takes some of the joy out of it for sure when you live in this environment that we're in, from that standpoint. But I think that the number of players that will have played at one university may go down.
Yeah.
Well, it is going to go down. It is down now. But the number of players that, if they pick the right coaching staff, they pick the right university, and they pick the right team on the front end, those that have played for 4 years, and maybe their freshman year was a role player. Maybe their sophomore year they were the first one off the bench, and maybe as a junior they were a captain and a 90-minute player, same thing as a senior. Those players generally have an additional benefit associated with their experience that you just described, because those coaches who feel that this is a 4-year player, the investment is nonstop. It's constant in their game. And the ones that want that investment and want to meet you halfway, I think they have the best chance at a long future. Look, Trinity Rodman could have gone to 5 colleges in 5 years and she was going to be a star. There are outliers that it just doesn't matter. That's how good she is. And, Lindsey Horan, maiden name,
Yep.
Went to France at 15, and it was really difficult, but grind through, and, one of the best players in the world. By the way, if you ever met her, I've only have briefly, one of the seemingly best humans to be a leader on the women's national team of any country, anytime, anywhere. She's just a wonderful person, from my limited experience. So, for her, that wasn't the route. But just to your point, yeah, I think there is a culture of move on when there's a little pushback. And any great athlete, I had this exercise one day with our team 4 or 5 years ago. I said, raise your hand and tell me your favorite athlete. And I was kind of praying on the inside they wouldn't say somebody I didn't know their history, but most of the names were people that I had remembered and knew their story. And after about 10 of them told me their favorite athlete of all time, we went through and told the stories quickly about the adversity that each one of them had. And, of course, someone said Michael, so that was easy. He got cut from his sophomore basketball team. But these are examples, right? So if we have all these heroes, they're the best women players ever, and they dealt with – I think Brandy Chastain had 7 knee surgeries. If you deal with their adversity and see where it made them, how it molded them, you got to embrace adversity, unless it's the kind that we would all agree, you know what, that school probably isn't for you. And we could fill in the blank with a million of those examples. But if it's just getting pushed, if it's just challenging for playing time, if it's just working on your game so you can beat out the player that's in front of you, that's what makes you. And that's what's made most of the best athletes in the world at any sport.
Tom, I want to thank you. We're up on a hard break. Great stuff. By the way, Texas Tech has got a tremendous program. Of course, they have players from Texas on it as well. Tom has had an outstanding career as a coach at every level in the U.S. and has a lot more in front of him. Tom, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Glenn. Love the show.
Yep, thank you. That's Tom Stone, head coach, Texas Tech.